having me today. We have Gavin joining us from G5 Cybersecurity. He's coming from Kingston. Thank you very much. And Kevyn Smith from PwC here in the Bahamas. Kevin, over to you.
Do you mind if I stand up?
Sure.
All right. Okay.
Well, you can walk around with your radio mic if you like.
Oh. I do have a bit of a presentation to share. So if we can bring that up. Alrighty, so a little bit about myself. My name is Kevyn Smith. I'm a risk assurance manager at PwC. One of the hats that I wear is digital champion. And what that means is that as a region, as a territory, we do have some early adopters when it comes to using new technology. And once we use that new technology, we are able to train our employees and help them better make use of these tools. So when it comes to AI, this is one of the more recent tools that were added on. And so as an early adopter, I was using these tools for a few months now, and I'm able to, at least on a local level, show my fellow colleagues how best to use AI. And so initially, what I would want to talk about is adopting a digital mindset. So in terms of adopting a digital mindset, it's important that, one, you understand the processes and how you are adding value to your company. Two, you want to make sure that you understand the tools that you're using as part of your job, as part of your operations. And then part three, you want to make sure that you can embrace the change. Now, I know change is pretty difficult for some of us, and it can be scary, but when we adopt the digital mindset, it's one where we are able to encourage each other, collaborate with each other in order to make and improve processes. So I do have a few use cases that I hope can spark some ideas with on your individual jobs to make sure that you are making better use of AI. So information gathering. So what I use here is Copilot, but you can use this with any of the applications, any of the ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini. You can use them similar to a search engine, right? And so, for example, what I'd use is a PwC article, that's a shameless plug there, that shows how you can use generative AI as part of your process and gain value from generative AI. So what I had asked is, how can I use generative AI as part of my process? So the first part I said was, what are some key takeaways outlined in this document? So I'd uploaded the document onto the platform. All of the chat AI bots you can upload documents to. So what it does is analyze what's in the document in order for you to easily digest the information. And instead of having a search engine look for the results and they just give you the results, you can actually engage using the chat function. So for example, with this chat, I had asked it what were some key takeaways. It created a list of what were some key takeaways from the document. And so this could be helpful for you, for example, when there's new legislation that's introduced, when there's a new standard that's introduced, when you're implementing a new framework. And so when there's these new instances of change in your environment, a good first step is to use a chatbot, upload a document, and engage with that document on the chatbot. Because, for example, what I'd use next was, are there any risks that is outlined in the document? And if you read through the document itself, it doesn't necessarily speak to risk itself, but it's so intelligent that it can reach out to the web and find new information and identify what type of risk can exist throughout this document. And so use case one is being able to engage with the document much more intuitively, as if you're speaking with an individual who had authored the document. So use case two, process augmentation. And so for myself, I had a situation where, as digital champion, people think that I know how to use every single thing exactly. That's not necessarily the case. But people rely on me anyway to try to solve problems. And I had a situation where I was using one of our data analytics tools, and I was trying my hardest. I spent all day trying to make sure that I complete the task, and it just wasn't something I could have just done on my own. However, I was able to use the chatbot to help me out and identify some areas and different ways that I can improve the process or actually complete the task that was assigned to me. And so what I started off with was an idea of the problem that I had, right? So with that issue, I said, okay, well, I want to try to automate this task. I don't necessarily know how to. What are some tools that I can use to automate this task? And it went through, it made a list of tools, and I noticed, hey, Excel is there. I have Excel, so I can use that as well. So what I didn't realize at the time was that Excel had some tools built into it that were pretty powerful. In this specific case, it was VBA Editor. And with VBA Editor, you're allowed to automate your processes. And so what you can do from using these chatbots, once you outline your issue and what you're trying to achieve, what you'll be able to do is ask it to provide you with some code. And so the VBA Editor is a different type of coding language that I don't necessarily understand, but because I was able to understand what Excel could do with that VBA code, I was able to ask the chatbot to help me out and make something useful for me. So in that case, I don't necessarily need to know how the tool works, at least how to build it out from scratch, but because I know how the tool works, I can now use the tool in order to augment my own processes and be more efficient that way. GenAI Flywheel. So this is an overall framework, like I had mentioned before, of how an entity might go about implementing GenAI as part of their processes, right? So this is the document I referenced before, the PwC GenAI value realization tool, and it will help companies identify areas or create a framework around implementing GenAI as part of their processes. And so when we think about the individual who is going to use GenAI, there are lots of different tools, lots of different chatbots that you can use to implement and augment the way you work. And I think it's something that is quite easy to understand. So when we are implementing GenAI as part of our overall processes, it's not something that you need to go and learn something new. You can actually just engage with it, test it out, discuss with the tool itself, and you'll be able to improve yourself when it comes to AI. So thank you.
Please, thank you very much. Thank you. Just, Gavin, before we ask you to come up, I'll ask a question, if I may. I think people are interested to know how AI is going to affect them. Your examples were very good at how you use it, but if we look forward 5 years, say, to an average office involved in financial services, give us an idea of one or two big things that would be obviously different because of the application of an AI.
Yeah, I think the individual who is responsible for preparing information, their job is going to be a lot more different and easier in some ways and much more advanced in some ways. And so what you're able to do with some of these Gen AI tools is actually improve the way you work. And so what that might look like is that instead of spending a day or two gathering information, that information through the use of a chatbot, you can gather that relatively quickly, and you can spend more time analyzing your information. And so on the back end, when it comes to reporting, especially if you're going to report on a consistent basis and in a consistent way, you can develop tools that will allow you to more easily and more efficiently report in a timely manner.
I mean, we've had chatbots for a long time. Long before everyone spoke about AI, there were chatbots. So what's the difference now? It's just the size of the data set and the speed with which it accesses data?
With these generative AI, what's different is that they're creating something new. So with the older chatbots, what they usually would just say is, okay, they will reference something in the database and say, okay, you can use this link, refer to that, refer to this. Whereas now with this generative AI, it's actually trying to create something new and predict something that's going to happen. So for example, you might have a customer service representative bot, for example. How it used to happen is that it might identify a keyword here and there and then point you to the right direction where you can read the information. Whereas with these generative AI tools, what happens is that it's actually responding to you in a real way, in a human way. so that you don't necessarily need to look anywhere else. You can have all the information you need right at your fingertips with the engagement directly with the AI.
Super. There is a microphone at the front. If anybody has questions, please feel free. We don't need to wait till the end. Obviously, we're covering quite a wide topic, so feel free to jump up. Gavin, you want to go now? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, wow. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gavin Dennis. I lead G5 Cybersecurity. Now, this conference, I noticed that there are primarily companies in the financial sector here. I started out in the financial sector. I used to be an IT auditor. I used to be a financial auditor. I was also an internal auditor. Initially, at age 17, I started out as a financial auditor, working with BDO, and then I eventually moved on to, a few accounting roles. After a while, I believed that it wasn't for me, and I switched to my passion, which was more IT, and I chose to specialize in cybersecurity. What I get paid primarily to do now is to hack. So I help companies to assess their network, identify security vulnerabilities. My company actually has a client now in the Bahamas, but my strength that I want to share with you today is from the security perspective of how you can harness AI, because a lot of what I do is heavily around helping companies to assess if the technology that they're going to use or technology they are using now, what type of weaknesses and such it might have, and how it can be abused or misused. So I am a director at G5. G5 is a US-based cybersecurity company, 100% remote. So we're incorporated in the US. We primarily support businesses across the Caribbean. We are mostly a team of Caribbean people. I'm originally from Jamaica. Most of the team are split between Jamaicans who are spread across the world, and we also have someone from Guyana. So it's a Caribbean team, and we help companies like all of you here to not get hacked. That's really our job. Now, what we help you to assess, right? And now when you think about AI, there are lots of different things that AI can do. We have, I'd say in the past 3 years, there's been a significant boom in, or at least the pace at which AI is improving, right? 1 month you're hearing that AI can generate a video of this quality, and then within another month or two, that quality is more than doubled. So AI has really spread. And now, based on the kind of things that are in your network, so for everyone here, you have cell phones, you have laptops, you have routers, switches, you have servers, right? And there's some kind of AI tool that exists now to support all of these different devices. So example, one of the things I've told people in my company is that everyone now has a personal assistant, because you have things like ChatGPT, you have a whole bunch of other different AI tools. And so everyone now has someone who might be smarter than me, really, a digital assistant, right? Someone that's available to them 24/7 to ask an infinite amount of questions without worrying that you're cutting into their schedule or you're annoying them, or you're assuming that they have that knowledge. Now there is AI, and I've told everyone on my team that you all have a personal assistant, something that would have been near unfeasible a few years ago. So with all of these different systems on your network, all of the different types of services that you're trying to provide, internet banking, audit services, customer service, etc., there's some kind of AI tool that's available now with very advanced features that you can capitalize on to make your business more efficient, to make it smarter and I'd say more modern. So example, G5 is 100% digital. We do not own a printer at all. So our entire business process is end-to-end. They are paperless. So from sending someone a proposal to them signing that proposal, to them paying us with a credit card. We sent them an invoice, they paid with a credit card. We connect to them remotely and support them with the pen test, whatever that security assessment is. So that's just to give you an example that eventually, a lot of you might eventually get to that point where you are 100% paperless. Now, here's the general problem. When you think about cybersecurity and also the emergence of AI and that rapid progression, cyber attacks are 100% sure. There are several tools out there now that businesses are using that integrate AI into how they operate on your network. So for example, there are now tools called endpoint detection and response, which those are basically a much more advanced version of your traditional antivirus. So it basically looks at user behavior, not just checking for signatures for files that are malicious, but it's looking at how is the user interacting with the system. Are they interacting with the system in a way that looks suspicious or malicious, right? And then it flags those files and activities, sends an alert to IT, and IT now has a chance to investigate and confirm, is this really malware? What's hitting a lot of companies now is what's called ransomware. So essentially, the company gets hacked, your files get encrypted, you can't access those files, and then there's a note that's left behind that says you must pay X amount of money in Bitcoin for you to get back access to your files. And unless you have either the money to pay, which is usually about 4% of your annual income, right? So they research you to see how much money is this company making, and it typically falls within the 4% range, right? So it's either you have the money to risk, because even if you pay, there's no guarantee that you will get back the files, right? So you're also taking a risk, or you have backups, which you can restore from. And this is how a lot of cyber criminals now, aka hackers, are making money, because it's very lucrative, right? Companies don't want their data to be dumped. They might be willing to pay, and if they do pay, they are getting paid several millions in US dollars. Next, a data breach costs a lot of money. Now, if you don't get smart about how you try to react to a breach or even to proactively protect against it, it will cost a lot of money. And this is where AI is coming in with just lots of helpful ways to cut your costs. Right? For almost every role now in your company, there's an AI tool that can support someone to do their job faster, better, and just overall, just more effectively. So once you have a data breach, the amount of money that you will have to spend will be, I'd say, at least 4 times as much as you would spend to try and proactively protect against it. Third, maintaining a highly skilled team is going to be expensive. So, I mean, if you think about your company, I think there are lots of companies in the Bahamas and even across the Caribbean that I've come across where they outsource some aspect of IT. Because to try and keep those persons and to train them and get them qualified and maintain their education is very expensive. And so now, with AI, you can augment your team where they are short. It doesn't mean that you can completely replace people, because you still need someone to keep an eye on things. But maintaining a highly skilled team is expensive. And this is where you can now capitalize on AI, from analyzing resumes and automatically shortlisting people to executing cybersecurity assessments across your network, to analyzing network traffic. And Kevin mentioned earlier about customer service. One of the ways how some companies are using AI from the customer service perspective is each time someone comes and visits your site, they are looking for something. On my company's website, there's a little bot that talks to the person. So once they come, it says, hey, would you like to book a meeting? Would you like to get a quotation? Would you like to ask? Would you like to get support? And they can, from that chatbot, they can directly book a meeting into our calendar And also, based on the kind of questions they ask, we can then ask AI to generate a help article so that the next time someone comes and asks a similar question, there's already, that bot can directly answer them to say, hey, this is the answer. So AI can proactively help your business from various perspectives to just be more effective and save you a lot of time. And 4, there are lots of continuously moving parts. So right now, I'd say by next week, you're going to hear about some new updates, some new feature that's happening. We have we're using AI to clone people's voices. So right now we have what's called a social engineering engagement. So I am a part of my overall team. We are being tasked to call a company and try and trick their staff into either disclosing sensitive info or taking an action like to download a particular file and execute it. So one of the things that we can do now is if we go on, let's say, YouTube or somewhere where someone senior in the company has recorded their voice and we can get their voice for 1 minute, that's enough for us to clone their voice and then reuse it to trick their team that this is really them, right? It needs to be 1 minute of a fairly good quality, but I mean, these are the kind of battles that you will be facing. People are going to be using AI to do bad against you, and it's going to also be up to you to see how you can use AI to counter that and also to help yourself in general. And overall, that's a good gist of kind of what I do, right? Some of the key things that you can think about in terms of how AI is being used out in the field, from voice cloning to automating customer support, right? Sending people to a customer service agent if there's no answer in a database, but also talking to them for the things that you do know as part of your overall knowledge, right? So when you're thinking about AI today and you're going back to work tomorrow to say, okay, AI is out there, what can we do? If there's something that you can possibly think of, there's some way that AI can do it. Even if not 100% of it, you can almost be sure that AI can do or execute some of that idea that you have. Thanks.
Thank you. Good man, thanks. Gavin, thanks a lot. We don't have much time now, so I'm going to push on. Thank you for talking about the security aspects and this ability to clone a voice. I'm a banker. We have a lot of procedures which try to protect us from fraud, to make sure we know who we're dealing with when we're making a payment or such like. How frightened should I be?
So realistically, right, it's a risk, it's a genuine risk. It's not happening on a really large scale, and that's primarily because it's still a lot easier to simply send someone an email and trick them into clicking a link and telling them that, oh, your password has expired. It is still easier to do that. But every business needs to start building in that kind of proactive protection because you know that this is happening, so you shouldn't wait until it affects your company. So your policies and procedures eventually have to evolve to factor in these kinds of scenarios. People are being tricked on Microsoft Teams and other virtual meeting platforms where they're hearing their boss's voice, but it's not really them, and they're getting instructions to say, hey, make this transfer, do this, do that, and even there are other persons that are in that same meeting where their voices have been cloned, right? So we are going to a point where AI is advancing so well that we'll have to start verifying directly with people when it comes to certain sensitive actions like making a transfer or updating someone's account, etc. We will get to that point where we'll have to be more proactive.
So you mean I have to give my clients a password or ask them for their mother's maiden name or some such, like we did 20 years ago?
No, so a lot of that info, a lot of what some people don't know is when you hear about people tricking others, a lot of that info about people's maiden name, their birthday, people share a lot of those things freely on social media. So it's not really as hard to get as you might think. And so a lot of banks have introduced the tokens where the number changes every 30 seconds and they need that to authorize any kind of transaction. So now with AI, we'll have to get more into finding even additional creative ways to confirm that it's really them. Information that's normally freely shared, we will have to reduce a bit on those, and things like using the tokens and making that mandatory for any kind of authorization is going to become a thing. So you'll know that only the person that has that token can really authorize it, not by information that they might know.
Great. Let's just switch tack. We were speaking about how an office might change. I did some research, and there was a report last year, I think, from McKinsey. It was in July 23, which anticipated the makeup of the US job market in 2030. It wasn't exclusively on the impact of AI, but that was one of the factors they considered. And in the table, they show the jobs where there'll be growth and the jobs where there will be a decline. Top gainers, not surprising, healthcare professionals, STEM professionals, that's science, technology, engineering, math. These people are going to be engaged. The big losers, office support staff, customer service and sales. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I get the fear. It's definitely going to be a big change coming up. But I think what is the silver lining here is that in order to upskill yourself, it's so much easier than it was ever before. Like before, you had to, go to school, go to training, get a certification. But now you can access information so much more easily and improve yourself so much more easily than before. And so, although ultimately, inevitably, there will be some folks that lose their job, but it's so much easier for you to get back into things and to upskill yourself in a way that you can make yourself so valuable to your company.
So you're a Bahamian professional, you know the professional environment locally. Who in this room needs to start worrying?
Everyone?
Everyone, okay, good to know.
Because, okay, so I'll put it this way. You see videos on social media a lot of times where the students are taking notes in their class using an AI. They're using that AI to now make their papers or create their flashcards and stuff. And so the person you're competing with already knows how to use AI over the next 5 years or so, these ones who are graduating, right? So it's up to us now who are already in the environment to also be AI enabled, because these folks are coming in and they already know how to use AI, and so they just need to learn how to do your job. And so now that's who you're competing with in the future. And so, but again, silver lining is you can adopt these things as easily as they did. It's just a matter of engaging with the AI, understanding how prompting works, and you're able to upskill yourself really well. So.
Super. Okay, we're coming to the end. Let's switch to regulation. Okay, it's a hot topic now. How do we protect ourselves, not just in financial services, but across all platforms, from these very rapidly advancing platforms? There's lots of fear that we're going to have killer robots and so forth. Mm-hmm. And so I was looking in The Economist, who covered this recently, and it just made some comments on likely scenarios. And OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT, so a pioneer in this industry, this is a quote. OpenAI say, it wants something, this in terms of the type of regulator, it wants something like the International Atomic Energy Agency, the world's nuclear watchdog. So then I looked up the mandate of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and this says it's a forum for scientific and technical cooperation in nuclear field. It works for the safe, secure, and peaceful use of nuclear science and technology, contributing to international peace and security and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. A huge bureaucratic organization tasked with keeping the world safe from nuclear power. And OpenAI reckon that's what we need to regulate AI. Gavin, what do you think?
So that's on a very large international scale. What I'd suggest, at least starting from the Bahamas, is not to wait on governments or some international body to come to you and say, you should start putting ethics and controls and policies in place around protecting your citizens against AI, and even members of the association, right? So you can start before they come to you, because that will take maybe a few years before it starts to spread. So I'd say start to think about the kind of guardrails that you would want to put in place now around how people can use AI in the financial space, right? And then you can lobby your government to put in overall laws and regulations in place to protect, because people are using AI to abuse your businesses, right? They are going to try to clone people's voices. They are going to try and create fictitious images like deep fakes of people, right? And the things that you will have to deal with in your day-to-day life will be more direct and happening in the short term versus things like the atomic bombs and AIs and things like that, using AI in wars. You're going to have things like someone's going to create a picture of you doing something that's not really you. They're going to take your face and superimpose it in a video or on a picture. And these are things that you will likely end up dealing with in the short term. So it's always going to be in your best interest to start early and not wait on some European type entity or entity that's a global body. Start from now with thinking about how do you want to ensure that AI isn't being abused within your business sector. And then maybe other sectors will follow, and then also maybe the government will follow with an overall law.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off that a bit, there's actually a lot of guidance out there on responsible AI. And so these outline a lot of the different risks that exist specifically in relation to AI. And so when you're developing your own internal policies, there's already a lot of resources out there that talk about, automation bias, input bias, all of these different risks that are specifically related to AI. And so it's not that you're necessarily starting from scratch. There's already ways that you can, build in controls when it comes to AI. And so I think one key thing that exists throughout of these different recommendations is that you always have to have some human level involvement at some part of the process. Like there has to be some way for a human to make sure that what the AI produces is correct. One thing that you learn about when you start to learn about AI is that it hallucinates, is what the term they use. And that means that, it is trying to generate something new. And so it will confidently tell you that something is wrong. So just to make a simple example, if you only showed it pictures of sunsets and you asked it what color is the sky, it's going to say something like red or orange, when that's not exactly true, right? So that's your input bias. And so whenever we talk about, regulation and how we're going to manage things, and we need to make sure that there's a human involved in the process, and that needs to be along the way. So, yeah.
Super. Are there any questions from the floor? Last chance, I think. We're coming to the end. If not, then I would say thank you very much indeed, guys.
Thank you.
That was excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Pity we didn't have an extra 10 minutes. Oh, please.
Good afternoon. I think you touched on it a little bit, but I just wanted to maybe dive in a little bit deeper in terms of the the controls and the concerns along the lines of AI. I think you started to talk about some of the bias concerns or even the privacy issues. But from the regulatory standpoint, what recommendations would you like to see implemented to kind of manage it? Because you talked about earlier about everyone having a little digital assistant in their pocket. The immediate concern when you hear these type of things would be the over-reliance of AI. And in some cases, the following concern would be job displacement. So what type of inputs would you like to share with the wider crowd, maybe to have a holistic conversation along the lines of AI?
So one thing that I think is probably important is accountability. That's kind of, I think, what your question is getting at. So when we think about accountability in terms of AI, what, for example, we did at PwC was that there's a global executive AI officer now that recently implemented in the last few months. And so maybe we need to, take this just as seriously as cybersecurity, where we assigned, a cybersecurity officer who has roles and responsibility in relation to cybersecurity. We should probably now implement a similar thing with AI, where you have an individual as part of every business, who is responsible for the, fair use and security and transparency of your AI. So that's just probably something that I think we should, consider when we're making legislation.
Gavin, anything?
So using Jamaica as an example, they've started to create what's called an AI task force, and they are really in charge of taking charge of where the country goes when it comes to AI. Now, in general, I think every country will need to have to take proactive charge so that AI doesn't happen to them and you deliberately adjust this or control the sales of where the country is going in terms of AI. So I'd recommend that there's some type of body that is set up, even if it's just one person, right? And their job is to ensure that you're using AI in a deliberate way, and it's not being used on you per se. So having someone maybe even within your company where it's tacked on to their existing role, right? Or even at the national level where there's someone who their responsibility is to see how can the country leverage AI to be more effective towards all of its goals, right? Across all of the different ministries, education, finance, etc. How can we use AI to be smarter in government and to support citizens in a more proactive and deliberate way? So someone needs to own AI because it's something that is here, right? It's not coming, it's already here, and so we can't act like it doesn't really exist. So we have to deliberately take charge and decide what we are going to do with it.
Thank you. Anybody else? And I'll say thank you very much. And we're done. Take care. Maybe go that way. Oh, this way. Oh, sorry.